I just opened up the feed. We are on YouTube Live. This is Scott Stimpson with International Computer Solutions. Sitting here with my buddy Sid, a couple of Alaskans that like technology. And we are the San Carlos Computer Club, or you all are the San Carlos Computer Club. We consider ourselves part of that as well. And we were just chatting down the standard topics of how you doing in COVID, what's happening locally, and how everybody's doing. Judy, did you have something you wanted to add?
Nope.
No. And hey, there's Bill. Bill, we just saw your smiling face.
It's always smiling.
That's what I thought. For some reason, I don't see all of your faces at the moment.
Let's have our cameras off.
Yeah, is that it? Is all the cameras off?
Well, David's is always off.
There we go.
That's like putting a mask on.
And happy Fat Tuesday Carnival is today.
Carnival starts today, is that what you said?
It ends today. Tomorrow is Ash Wednesday and Lent begins.
All right.
Yep.
Well, they
Better eat
canceled
all the
Carnival
meat.
in Wymus.
Why?
Better eat all the meat you can.
Why isn't it Carnival in Wymus? It's in New Orleans.
Yeah, because of COVID
They have
restrictions.
Mardi Gras.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah, Richard took off to Mazatlan because he has a Mazatlan website, and so he's gone there to
Mhm.
film footage. But even him getting on the bus to go down there, he wasn't sure what was going to happen. The government wouldn't confirm or deny anything. They didn't have a firm date for the parade, but they encouraged people to make floats.
So I'm up here. I'm not going to be here long. My brother's visiting, so I'm going to sit in the sunshine and visit with him. And the lovely Cheryl Howell just come back from making movies or something. She saw some kind of ad for somebody they're making an ad.
Yeah, making a promotional video for San Carlos.
Yeah, promotional video for San Carlos, and she's the star.
No,
Oh,
she
awesome.
Oh, you got cut?
I got cut.
Oh no.
Well, now we're disappointed. Oh, here comes Jim.
The face on the cutting room floor.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Anyway, we drove to Mesa day before yesterday, picked up brother Bobby off the plane and drove home yesterday. It's about 10 hours each way, I think, isn't it? Or 7 hours each way.
It depends on how many times you have to stop in the bathroom.
Well, it's fact. We had to at the border and time we know where all the good washrooms are.
Wait time at the border was 0 minutes.
Zero. It was the first time we've ever drove up to the person, and there was no cars in the lot, and there were 10 bays running. They had 10 people working, and there was nobody in the.
I've never seen that. 10. You're talking about all the lines were open.
Yeah, all the green, the things all open up on top, and we literally drove into that parking lot or that lot and drove up to the border guard.
The supply is reciprocal to the demand.
Yeah.
So is going on in Mazatlan, so their webpage says. And
Anyway, I'm going to go visit with my brother.
it's
All right,
been
Bill,
celebrated
You have
in
fun. We'll talk to you
Mazatlan
next
since
week, or I might talk to you sooner.
Yep. Might log in. I don't know. You want to sit down here?
No,
No.
we're going to Guaymas this afternoon.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Later.
Adios.
So, I don't know if you guys noticed, but Sid and I are eating a batch of Kringla. Yuya went through the freezer and decided she needed to make up some Kringla.
Can you send some up here, please? Sounds
Maybe when
good.
Sid returns, we'll see.
Yeah, I'll bring some when I come back.
Oh, that looks really good.
What are you looking at?
Your fruit?
Oranges.
Yes, these fruits, can you see my hand? These are from our yard. This is from my friend Pat's yard. Oh, wait, there we go. Lemons from my Pat's yard and friend Pat, and tangerines from her yard. But mine are the oranges.
I forgot for a moment you're still in Mesa. You haven't made it back to Alaska yet.
No, in fact, we're staying 2 extra days, 2 weeks extra because your dad has some dental stuff to finish and they can't quite finish it in time. So I'm going to be hot.
All right. Sid's been complaining too.
I can sympathize with that. It was just roast toasty in here yesterday, and no matter what we did, it was hot.
It had to be like 78 degrees.
80.
I've been outside.
It went up to 80 here yesterday. Hey, where's all your people? All I see are tiles.
I think everybody's got their cameras off.
Well, then we'll talk. I'm going to leave at 11. Pat wants to go over and be a baby for her. So if I disappear like that.
You're breaking up a bit for me, but I understood that you may have to leave around 11.
Yeah, Pat Lee is back home from the hospital.
Oh, excellent.
But she still needs watching. So JD has an appointment he has to go to. So I'm going to go over and sit with her.
We'll give her our best.
Yep, yeah, I can tell you she's doing great. She looks so healthy. Her lips move just fine.
Well, then I know she's okay.
Yeah, she's saying cheerful things.
If she wasn't saying cheerful things, I'd be worried.
Yeah, me too.
Well, obviously, this is not taking place in person. The tentative plan to possibly broadcast this meeting from Tequila's did not happen this week. I'm thinking it may happen next week, but I'll plan on doing it at the exact same time so it won't disrupt anybody's schedule right off the bat. I really want to bring these two computers in there, set it up the way I want to do it, and see if it works. And so I will, if I am there, I'll let you know I'm going to be there, but I'm not going to change the time just in case. So we're not wondering when we're starting next Tuesday.
Sounds good.
I have got this document of possible topics open. I see a couple of you are in here right now. One of the topics and questions that I have added to it is Sid's most recent experience with his iPhone. He has bought a Mexican SIM and put it into his iPhone XR, which supports dual SIM, and started up Telcel service. You want to expand on where I'm going with this?
Basically, it went through and it wouldn't recognize the names I had associated with phone numbers, like in text messages and my call log, because it didn't have the international +1 in front of it. So it just dropped all the names, but I just went back and reassociated all those numbers with the contacts I had in my phone, and it all works now.
So did you catch that what's going on is he added this Telcel service, and your phone actually asked you a question about this.
Yeah, it asked a question about contacts, and neither of us paid any attention to it. We hit a button, and I think it's the exact
I
opposite.
think you're being too fair with yourself. You hit a button before I had a chance to even look over your shoulder.
I asked you a question about it before I hit the button.
Yeah, there you go.
Anyhow. Yeah, having us in the same room is not helping. But no, once I went through and I got all the numbers with a +1 on it associated, it's like in Alaska in your contacts. Now, we have one area code for the whole state. And if you don't have a 907 in your phone in front of the number, it'll tell you that it can't associate that number.
So again, the problem started by adding an international SIM. I'm not sure what the message was that
Yeah, I
Sid
don't know
skipped
either,
past. However, when he was done, then every one of the text messages that he was using was not associated by a contact name. It was associated only by the phone number. So if you could imagine going through your list of chats, you would not see people's names. You would only see their phone numbers. So you're a bit blind to who you were communicating with. You said that also happened in your call log too. All the phone number, all the phone conversations
Yeah.
you had.
It was weird. Some of them didn't change. When I went back and looked, some of them in the contacts I had the +1.
This is
Sometimes when somebody sends you their number, it's an automatic down or
so. This
automatic
is how you
attachment of the
sorted
number.
this out, right? Was those numbers? He had intentionally done the full formatting of an international phone number. He had done plus country code, area code, phone number, and those contacts would show up on the call log and on the text messaging. However, all the other numbers that were formatted like local phone numbers, like 10-digit phone numbers, those were just showing up. The names were not associating. And so now, to remedy the problem, Sid has gone through his contact list.
Well, what I did was I knew who the number belonged to because I could look at the texts and figure it out pretty quick. And you just add that number to the contact and erase the other number. And
So-
that was the easiest, fastest way to do it.
So theoretically, you would continue to have this kind of problem with any contact that you didn't edit in
Well-
this moment.
Theoretically, I switch back to AT&T when I get to the States and make it my primary. It might go back to normal.
You know, it's interesting you say that because we didn't try pulling the SIM out and going back to your old service to see if the names just reformatted themselves. That'd be a good
Yeah,
test.
good point.
We should have tried that.
I'm not playing with that again.
All you do is pull. You're just now talking about. You want to play with it here while I'm here to beat you up about it, or do you want to play with it when you get home all by yourself? I'm sure you want to take criticism for it, and
Hard choice.
It's not that I want to take criticism. It's just that you're going to give me criticism.
there you go.
Back to us in the same room doesn't help.
So this I thought was a great learning lesson. Neither one of us expected this, and it goes back to that fully formatted phone numbers in your phones will keep you out of trouble. If you just, I mean, we live in 2022, except that every phone number has a country code associated with it, and just make sure you've put that in. If it's a U.S. number, it's going to start with a +1, then the area code, then the phone number. If it's a Mexican number, it's going to be a +52 because that's the country code for Mexico, and then it's going to be the area code and phone number. And I said +1 for U.S., but that's actually Canada too.
When you say +1, do you actually have to put a plus in front of the one?
Yes.
Ah,
You should be able to create a plus by holding a long press on a 0. This Kringa's attacking me.
Hello, Gary.
that's
Don't
because
inhale
it's
Kringles.
supposed to be at Christmas time.
Go ahead, Sid.
On the iPhone, there's when the keypad comes up to punch in the phone number, in the bottom left-hand corner you have the symbols, and you hit that, and it'll give you all your pound, plus, and all that. And then you just go back. It's like going from numbers to letters when you're typing stuff out for text and such.
That's good to know. I don't have an iPhone.
How do you get Sid?
Yeah.
How do you
How do you get the plus is the question.
Oh,
get to,
let me go to that right now.
I'm pushing the long
So-
long 0, but
So
I
a
know there's
long
other one
0 will
for,
give you the
for Sid.
plus.
You know how you put your finger on the text line and just hold it to get the line to come up for editing?
Well,
Right?
that might be a
Yeah.
bad, but yeah, okay.
Let me just bring up the phone number so I
See, the iPhone works the same way. You can just hold the 0 and that'll turn into a plus. I think what you're describing is making the edit. Is that what you're asking about, Jim? How to make
Yeah.
the edit?
So you would
No,
go
I
into
just
edit.
was wondering about.
You go into edit on the phone on the contact.
My question is, screen with the pounds and all. Sid says that he has a way of getting to a screen with all the other symbols.
All the symbols, yeah. So he's not actually talking about the dialer. He's talking about the editor of the contacts. So
when you're doing your contacts, and when you're doing your put the phone number into your contacts.
It's actually a different keyboard. Boy, that's frustrating.
Oh.
Yeah.
And it's the lower left-hand corner has a button to switch between symbols and numbers. And that's where you get the plus. And you're going to have to know that on an iPhone,
Okay.
It looks like. What happens if you just do a long press on a 0 in that editing field? Will that bring up a plus? It doesn't look like it will. No. So the long 0 works when you're dialing the number, when you're actually dialing the number. But when you're editing a contact, like Sid's putting +1 in front of a previously created contact, then he's got a different keyboard on his iPhone.
So like
it's a number pad, but to the left, lower left-hand corner is a symbols button that switch between symbols, letters, and numbers.
Yeah.
And if you put your finger on the line,
And Judy's showing it off right now.
What that one?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so when you're looking at the phone number under edit, when you're editing the contact, you put your finger on the number in front of the parenthesis of the area code, and that line will come up. The edit line will come up, and then you just type in your +1.
Or +52.
Or whatever.
Yeah. The country code. And it feels odd for us to have to do this, but at this day and age, this is the way phones are identified. And so we should be in the habit of doing this. Even though it feels odd, even though your phone works locally correctly, it may even work correctly nationally. When you go across the border, it stops working correctly.
Yeah. Well, like I said, in Alaska, we just switched to you have to have the area code inputted into your contacts for the phone to dial it correctly.
Well, that must be wireless service you're talking about, because we've had 10-digit dialing for a while in Alaska.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you could, but like we had one area code for the whole state, so all you had to do is just put in 7 numbers and it would dial it no problem statewide. Now it's mandatory you have to do that.
Yeah. And it is still the same area code for the entire state. You have to dial the area code to call anywhere, but it's the same area code everywhere. All right. Anybody have their own troubleshooting questions? Anything on your list that we should all talk about? Is there something smoking that needs to be turned off? Nobody smoked a computer this week like I did?
No.
I don't smell anything brown.
No.
Say that again, Paul.
We did manage to get our.
Sorry,
I don't
Jim.
smell
Go ahead.
anything brown.
No, nothing brown.
Electricians, that's what electricians say about outlets that are burning, stuff like that.
Jim, what did you want to add?
Oh, we did manage to get our Wi-Fi lit up after 2 years away. So,
Did you, Jim? Is everybody able to hear Jim? Because I'm not. It's coming in very choppy, and yeah, you're in and out there, Jim.
well,
I wonder if you are having Wi-Fi
that's
problems.
our old. Yes.
Are you on a hotspot?
Organize. No, we're on Telmex, and they're going to be putting in the fiber optics as soon as we can get that. It's here in the park,
Okay. So you're
but not on
you're
my line.
in you're still on an old DSL connection that's questionable. Jim, if you can hear me, I would make the suggestion to turn off your video. That would cut down the amount of bandwidth that you need. And the other suggestion, if you can hear me, is I would change your layout to go to speaker view or spotlight. I guess that's what it's called, spotlight view. And that way, that'll cut down on your bandwidth use as well. And so it'll make it a more pleasant conversation. That is, if you can hear me, because you're just a frozen picture on the screen right now.
It sounds to me like he's actually got a loose
I'll try to
wire
do
on the
that with
microphone. Maybe he's got a remote not plugged in fully.
No, this is the microphone.
Well, and that was a complete statement instead of getting broken up. Jim,
Now,
I
after
think
the
you're
video,
I think you're in an area that's getting questionable internet through your DSL. It just feels that way to me. I'm guessing,
Yeah.
but just from experience here in San Carlos, it's feeling that way. Well,
okay. Well,
we've
thanks
sure
for
got
letting me know.
we've sure got crazy stuff going on in the world, and there are a lot of tech topics about what's going on. And so I don't know if you've looked at this list, but I found a couple articles of things I thought would be interesting to talk about. I don't know if anybody saw the call for Ukraine calling Tim Cook to block the Apple Store, to shut down Russia's access to app stores and to their services. And I thought that was an interesting take on the way to global politic. There are definitely, we've been watching as well, just this morning, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube have shut off Russia's access to the European Union, and they've got the banks organized to shut down SWIFT to affect their economy in Russia. And I just thought that was interesting, the day and age that we're living in. And one of the things that I was hearing tech pundits talk about is this idea of cyber warfare and whether they should be encouraging the things of like bringing down internet in Russia, bringing down electricity, shutting down the trains, which are all things that are on the table to hackers. White hat hackers, from our perspective, people working for the government, they have burrowed inside those systems, and we have our own rodents burrowing through our systems. We've seen that in the past. There's been reports of different parts of the power grid being shut off and finding code in strategic areas in the United States infrastructure. Definitely enough to make us concerned that they're able to do it to us as easily as we can do it to them. And the question is, do we? Is this the modern day version of the nuclear deterrent? Like, do we do these things or do we not do these things knowing that they will do them to us? Do we open up that battlefield under this? Because we're not trying to have a battle with Russia. But this cyber war could be the stalemate that the nuclear war has been in the past. It could be. It could be that it sounds great. It's like, yeah, we're technologically sophisticated and we want to make Russia pay, so let's bring down the electric grid. And then all of a sudden, people don't have a way to communicate. I mean, the oligarchies aren't the ones that are suffering from that, but their people are. They don't have a way to organize, and what they've got is hostility towards the country that has done it. So I think of Russia as having some of the most sophisticated hackers on the planet, and they do it for profit, but they get started in it truly for fun. To be so technologically literate in such a country is to ask them to go out on the internet and find this technology that they don't have standing in front of them and try and compromise it and call it their own. And so they have a history of just having some of the best hackers in the world. And I get scared when I start hearing the administration talk about, well, we have the ability to shut down their power grid or mess with their nukes or something like this because it gives them
I have a
license.
different take on that.
Yeah, Chester, please give me a different take on it.
Well, my take is that it's my understanding that Russia is not interfering on the internet and not shutting anything down, either in the war zone or here. And my view would be I would be prepared to interfere with the Russian internet, provided that they first attacked me. In other words, I wouldn't do anything until we have a problem, then I would give them a problem. Otherwise, I think your aggressiveness is a little over the line. That's not America.
Yeah. Well, maybe the same. Maybe you and I have the same answer for different reasons. Because I think that we should just strictly hold a defensive tactic. You know, when I was verbosing earlier, I was just giving an example of the attitude that I was playing the devil's advocate. I am not somebody I truly don't think this is a good idea. I don't want to open that can of worms. I've got familiarity with hackers on our side of things, not government hackers, but just personal hackers. And I've got familiarity with the level of hacking that's done from Russia, and I don't want to poke that bear.
I do pick up on the news, though, that the American organizations in America are paying a lot more attention to any interference. They're looking more closely than normal. And so far, they're not finding any problems, but they are looking, and I think that's good.
Yeah.
Well, we are currently being pinned by hackers. We don't know if it's China, North Korea, or Russia right now. Russia did a lot of cyber attacks on the Ukraine, went after their power system, street lights, stuff like that, right off the bat, right before they started to come across the border. And the Ukraine was prepared for it. They've got their own hackers, and they just turned around and have been fighting them off as best they can. And Russia has really not been successful with cyber attacks in Ukraine lately. But some of that's the people in the international community have logged into the Ukrainian systems as friends and are working to fight that. That's where a lot of our unaffiliated white hat hackers are going. And some of our black hat hackers are going that route too. It's like, we don't stand with this, we don't agree with this, we're going to attack it.
In a subject different from hacking, I am very curious. You have these like 23 miles of 3-lane incursions of Russian vehicles on the highway. And we're talking about many countries giving airplanes to the combatants. Now, how do you get these supplies into the Ukraine when Russia has control of the air? We're so late in getting these supplies to how do you do that? How do we get them there?
Let's back up just a second, because I think something fits really good in the middle of where you're going and where Sid's coming from. If you haven't been paying attention, but Elon Musk just delivered a bunch of his satellite internet equipment to the Ukraine. I mean, basically fortifying their position on the internet, making sure that communication will stay up, because it's decentralized. I mean, of course, Elon Musk could probably turn it off, but no Russian shelling is going to turn it off.
All he had to do was toggle some switches to do that. I don't think he had to move anything physically into Ukraine.
he did have to have equipment physically delivered to the Ukraine because it's brand new stuff.
All the ground stations, terminals, that kind of stuff. The on-ground portion of Skylink, he had to have.
I wonder how he did it.
Planes.
Yeah, I suspect.
He flew them.
Here's a good example of this, what you're talking about with the air war. Russia does not have control of the skies. The Ukraine is fighting them plane for plane and winning. When the Russians went into, or when we went into Iraq, the air war lasted 23 minutes. The Russians today are still fighting the air war, and they're not doing well at it. But the Ukrainian still has a viable military air force flying. There are trucks and trains rolling across the border consistently. You got to remember, 2/3 of Ukraine's borders face friendly nations, and there are.
But then why aren't they strafing those caravans in?
They don't have control of the air. They have.
No, I'm talking about the Ukrainians.
They don't even have control of the air around Kiev right now.
Did you guys see the ghost of Kiev? I mean, I'm sorry, I hate to digress, but that's what I do. The great report on a pilot from Ukraine that took down 6 Russian jets of different styles because they were
all fighter jets.
They're all fighter jets. From what I understood, I'm not an expert. Sid's a better expert than I am. They were all better performing aircraft than his aircraft.
Yeah.
And by the end of the day, he had become a European ace, which hasn't happened since World War II.
Okay, you've got 23 miles of convoy, though, and I have not seen a single picture where they've been strafed or stopped or created any havoc at all. And why aren't those planes strafing those convoys?
They're keeping the cargo planes flying is a big part of it.
Well, I think also they have probably in those convoys, they have ways of targeting airplanes and bringing them down. So I would guess they are pretty loaded with that kind of equipment. Perhaps it's just too dangerous to try when you have a limited Air Force number and you're flying old planes.
Mom, you bring up a good point. We really, I mean, maybe.
That's where I was going.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to jump ahead.
Well, I was going to say, Sid has an incredible amount of history. Chester, I know you have a lot of history as well, especially a war history. I have none, so all I can do is speculate with my 21st century brain. I've got no idea what a military leader is thinking, what kind of resources he's got at his disposal. I see it as resource management, though, and maybe that's what this is.
Well, the biggest problem that convoy is having right now is all those old Javelin missiles we gave to Ukraine. They're having a lot of fun with those, and they're not complaining as much as the Marine Corps does. Switzerland has turned full production of the AT-4 anti-vehicle weapon rocket. We're not getting any more for our military right now. They're all going from the plant directly to the Ukraine, and those are being trucked across the border.
Sid, did you say Switzerland did that?
Yeah, the AT-4.
Well, for a neutral country, they're doing just fine, aren't they, for us?
Well,
yes, Judy.
There's a great
hold on. Let's give Judy a second. Go ahead, Judy.
So I was listening to a special on Ukraine, and the term "the Ukraine" was used during the USSR, and it actually means part of Russia, the Ukraine. They prefer to be known as Ukraine, just like Kiev is the old Russian pronunciation of Kiev.
Oh, that's the 10-minute warning just to keep you guys all on track. We'll be switching to a different meet in 10 minutes. We'll run the clock out, though. And we're trying really hard to use the term Ukraine instead of the Ukraine.
I know.
For exactly that.
When I learned about the Ukraine, it was the Ukraine, but you know.
I mean, like Great Britain
so, yeah.
put the in front of any conflict region, like ever, it was called the Lebanon or the Iraq. Instead of saying the Iraq War, they call it the Iraq. The Afghanistan, the stands, the Afghanistan. that is a very English thing, and that dates back to the Great Game between Russia and England in the 1800s.
Yeah, I gotta.
Interesting.
Did anyone hear about the new bomb that Russia is using?
No, go ahead, Chester.
It's called a vacuum bomb.
Vacuum.
And what it does, it creates a tremendous vacuum that sucks the wind out of people's lungs and kills them.
We use that. It's called a thermobaric bomb, or an air fuel bomb. When it goes off, when the fuel ignites, it sucks all the oxygen within a radius into it. We
Wonderful.
use those in Afghanistan against the cave systems.
So Russia's using those now?
Yes, as of yesterday or last night.
Yeah, they use those to great success in Chechnya.
And also they're using the cluster bombs, which I understand are against international law.
Well, it seems like the leader of Ukraine has a whole list of against international laws he keeps broadcasting about. It's a sad thing to have in front of us all the time. It's just amazing we live in this day and age that we're participating in this communication. Oh, and just to backtrack a little bit, if you're looking for I put the link to Elon Musk's satellite internet system news in our in-call meetings as well as the document we're using. But this is the day and age we're living in. One of the other stories I bring into the table is that it looks like they've received more than $22 million in Bitcoin donations. These are through different organizations, but the Ukraine has I did it again, didn't I? I said the Ukraine.
Yeah.
Ukraine is received $22 million, up to $22 million in Bitcoin donations from all across the globe, and now their Minister of Finance is offering to pay in Bitcoin the equivalent of $45,000 to any Russian that turns over one of their tanks.
Oh, it just surrenders.
Just surrenders the tank.
You walk up and go, give me my Bitcoin, and
well, actually, this article specifically says tanks, but yeah. So they're trying to encourage Russians to surrender by paying them in Bitcoin, and I can't think of anything more 2022 than trying to buy off soldiers with Bitcoin. The flip side of this is that Russia, being cut off from the economic network, is now relying on Bitcoin. In fact, we'll watch over the next few days and see what happens to Bitcoin in Russia. Their ruble has already dropped to less than a penny, and they've already had a run on their ATM machines and their banks to try and, I don't know, stash cash in mattresses? Is that what they're doing?
They're pulling rubles out, trying to get cash in hand. Because when your economy goes down, cash is king.
You know,
so what was the ruble worth? What was the ruble worth before this all happened?
It was at least 2 cents, at least.
Oh.
the number I heard today was it dropped 30% of its value. They've also raised their interest rates to 22% and 9%. And that's been in the last 3 days.
I also just out of the corner of my ear, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard that the oligarchies have been told they cannot take their monies out of the bank. They're not able to withdraw their funds. They're being told they're cut off from taking the money out of the banks.
What a shame! What a shame!
Actually, all of their assets are being seized, including housing and airplanes and anything that other countries can get their hands on.
Yeah.
And most of their money, however,
you're
has
talking
been
about
invested
outside of Russia.
Right, outside of Russia, most of their money.
But this is inside Russia. This is Putin saying you can't take your money out of the bank.
Well, most oligarchs have their money stashed outside of Russia. Now they're at the point where they can't move their money. That's what's hit. It's not taking it out of the bank. They can't move their money, which is allowing other governments to seize their assets.
Well, the most important thing that they've done is the SWIFT against 80% of the banks,
I'm looking for my.
a swift transfer system. But unless they cut off the oil, they can't really hurt Russia very badly until they cut off.
This is really the reason I don't think we need to engage in a cyber war with them. I think we've got everything to lose by what's it called? Bringing up the dander. We would be instigating against people, not the cause. We'd be causing pain and suffering to people that don't deserve it, and creating spite that's worth fighting against. If we stay cool and focus on the policy, focus on the politics that's happening right. Unfortunately, the politics is war, but we try and keep the civilians out of it as much as possible. Then they're still left to protest against their government. They're still left to organize and get the message out of how, hey, what percentage of the country is in line with this leader. We start messing with their internet. Say again, Chester?
I understand 6,000 Russians were arrested on Sunday for protesting in Moscow. 6,000 is a lot of people for Moscow when it's illegal to protest.
On Saturday, they arrested 9,000.
Well, and I can't help but believe if you turn off their electricity, there'll be a lot less people voicing their opinion.
There's a
little
podcast.
smart move.
Well, there's a podcast I follow called Angry Planet, and they cover conflict journalism.
Wait, we're not doing recommendations yet. Let me write it down. Let me write it down.
I'm not even to recommendations yet. But today they were the podcast, their episode I listened to this morning, it came out yesterday. They were talking about one of the problems that nobody's talking about is there's still oil and gas flowing on the pipelines out of Russia. Germany's got a serious issue. They turned off all their nuclear plants, and now they are so dependent on that gas from Russia, they don't want to turn their line off.
What did you see? They pushed
they
their
work on the
pipeline.
Yeah.
But they also pushed their green deadline from 2050 to 2035. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're not going to make it without nukes. It's just the way it is. I mean, they're getting a majority of their electricity from France right now.
Well, I think everybody's been impressed with what Germany has done this last week.
Actually, we should give Putin some credit because he seems to have united Europe, right?
Yeah, the EU is falling apart.
Germany has taken a strong stance, hasn't done that since World War II. We've got Finland, Sweden, and Norway ready to join NATO. What he's done is he's united everybody in the same cause. I mean, in some ways, he's done more in Europe than they've done in years.
What do you think about the rumor that's going around that he has got some real mental problems right now?
I buy right into it, Chester. In fact, I speculate maybe he's going out like Nero playing a violin because this just seems crazy.
Well, this is also schoolyard politics. Putin's a bully, plain and simple. He's gotten away with this 3 times now, and nobody has said a word to him. And if it hadn't been for Queen Bess of the Netherlands, when they put in that gas line, when they put in the pipelines in Georgia, the Dutch decided we're installing a brand new anti-aircraft system for the entire length of the pipeline. And when the Russians came out of North Ossetia, their planes went straight to the pipeline to bomb it, and they lost 21 aircraft in the first 25 minutes of the fight to the air defense system. Then all of a sudden there were no more airplanes, and then they started backing off.
These are all great topics that I didn't have on my list. So as Sid's talking, I'm finding the articles that reference the stuff we're talking about and sticking them in our document.
We're talking about stuff I know.
There you go, Sid. You and I should do a podcast just on military history, and you can enlighten me to all these topics.
No, we have Dan Carlin for that. It just takes him forever to put out one of those audio books, so he calls it podcast. Um, no, I've got a huge background in military history, conflict journalism, and politics and stuff like that.
So if you're paying attention to the document as it's ongoingly being edited, I just put a link to the ruble plunging nearly 30% against the dollar over the sanctions. There was another topic I wanted to hit too that we're talking about, and it just escaped me. I should have written it down. This call is about to end, so says the meat. Let's see how many minutes we've got left. No, it's about to go. We've got to start up the other meat. I'm doing that now. And I will meet you guys over there. Wow, everybody's frozen. Something happened. Is it me? And we're back.
I'm back.
All right.
Relatively smooth. I think I was on the clubhouse Wi-Fi, so now I'm on my own, so it might be better.
Oh my gosh, Jim, it's so much better. You're like in high definition now.
That's it. Well, this is our own, as opposed to the clubhouse is on the other side of the pool. I was hooked to them, I guess, but I figured that out in the interim. Hey, Sid was just talking about the different ways, and I know that people in the United States have had more military experience than I, but isn't it sort of important not to go against another army or another the
Please
strength
hold on
of,
just a second, Jim. Sid's going to put his headphones in just a moment. I know he's going to have an opinion.
While we're waiting for Sid, I have a comment.
Yeah.
See,
I read someplace that what is the United States going to do about power when we have 50 million electric cars and Texas couldn't even take 20-degree weather?
Well, it starts with a regulation of electricity, in my opinion.
5th generation nuclear reactor. We have enough spent uranium fuel rods right now. We can power 5th generation reactors for 75% of all the power in the U.S. for the next 120 years.
Those are good numbers.
That's an answer.
Oh, yeah. The new reactors are cool. They use 95% of the fuel, to where our slow burn reactors now use 5%.
Wow.
Yeah, they're standardized, I believe. They're
What?
cookie cutters.
Cookie cutter nuclear reactors.
We're talking about something the size of 4 55-gallon drums welded together. Can power a small town.
So they could put them in various places, almost like windmills or whatever,
Yeah. It would spread out our grid system, not being relied on heavy power centers.
Yeah.
That sure seems like the goal we should be shooting for, is decentralized electricity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Solar and wind's great.
My question for Sid was, if you're looking at Russia and you don't want to go up against their strength, then where is their weakness? Like, we don't want to go against them nose to nose on hacking because they're such good hackers. The price of gas.
The price of oil right now is their strongest thing. If oil had never gone to $100 a barrel and stayed between $25 and $50 a barrel, you wouldn't have seen the growth in Russia that had happened, that allowed Putin to do what he's done. He's hedged most of the progress they've made in Russia over the last 15, 20 years strictly on the price of oil. They're more tied into oil than most OPEC
I saw
nations.
that. I saw that too, in that it's similar to Japan during the Second War when they lost their access to the oil in Asia, and then they were kind of stuck. They were going to lose slowly by just waiting, or they made the big gamble and went into Pearl Harbor in the hopes of getting American oil, I guess.
Well, no, the attack on Pearl Harbor was more of a standoff thing. They wanted to make a point that we're strong now and we can hold you off. And it didn't work too well. We got everything back in the water really fast.
Go ahead, Chester.
Pearl Harbor because we blocked the oil from going from Southeast Asia to Japan, and we cut them off from any steel or particular scrap steel that they needed for their steel mills. So
that's right.
Roosevelt put the squeeze on Japan, and that's one of the major reasons why they went to war.
Yeah.
Well, you have the Dutch oil fields in Malaysia and other places, and then you had us even before the war, a couple years before, because of their actions in China, we cut off shipments of scrap steel.
Yeah. In Canada, we're still missing some of the rail lines that we sent them to make battleships out of.
Is that a true story?
Well, I'd hate to say that this yard of track went to that battleship, but I'm pretty sure that's what was happening.
That's really interesting. I had no idea.
Canada was one of the last to cut them off.
Yeah, because we had so many rail lines all over the place that we weren't using, that it looked like a good way to have jobs and get it happening.
It's kind of like ripping the copper wire out of your house nowadays.
Yeah, same idea. It's ironic because there's still a lot of rusting rail lines around.
Yeah.
I'm all for keeping the lines, and especially the corridors. Maybe the infrastructure is shot, but don't break the corridors.
Yeah.
So where do you see the weakness then in Russia? Just with the oil?
Well, here's their biggest problem. Militarily, their biggest problem is their entire military is conscript. They have a very, very, very small. There are Caribbean nations that have a larger professional military than Russia does. They rely heavily on 2-year conscription, which means you can get a guy in, get him up through basic training, into some kind of advanced combat school, and then he's looking at a 6-month tour till he can leave his 2-year hitch for being a draftee.
Right. Yeah.
The major problem is their atomic capability. Other than that, their army is really quite small and quite inexperienced, with 70% of it surrounding Ukraine. So they don't have much of an army, but what they have is very efficient in terms of equipment and atomic bombs and short-range atomic.
So what about their Air Force then?
Su-27s are really cool, but you got a pilot that's had barely any training in it.
I think we're more concerned about China. China's buildup of military than we are Russia. Russia doesn't have the money to build a big military.
And thirdly, the Navy.
The Russian Navy's been just a mess for 30 years.
So
well, and we've watched a lot of anecdotal videos from the Ukraine that come across Russian vehicles that are in poor shape and abandoned, vehicles that have run out of gas, supplies. I saw one this morning on Reddit. They were showing off the emergency rations that expired 6 years ago. They're really painting this picture of an unprepared military. not having been, well, what's it called when you recycle, when you update, hasn't been updated in a long time, hasn't gotten its Windows updates this week. To bring it back to computers, they're not up to date, and so what they've got are sheer masses in the control of Russia, but they're not operating in a very sophisticated manner. And what I find fascinating, and to bring it back to computers, because it is Computer Club, is that I feel like Ukraine is doing a very successful job of doing a social media war on Russia. The entire planet is against Russia right now, and if you're not against Russia, then you're probably getting investigated right now, right? Because you're on that list now. Because they've done such a great job of pointing out how unfair this is to this Democratic Party, and how much honor is with this culture that we've watched, and this is all on social media. We've watched families get dropped off on the safe side of the border so that the husband can run back and go fight for the country. We've watched married couples. We watched a married couple just got married the day after the attack, and then went out to hand out rifles and ended up shot by the end of the week. Right? They ended up dead fighting against the Russians. These are very powerful symbolism to shoot across the world.
Not just that, multi-millionaire sports stars are returning, putting on private stripes and grabbing their AK and walking out into the field. I mean, this is a big deal.
And what's also amazing for democracy is that this leader is a comedian, well known for being a comedian that played the president in a sitcom.
Paddington Bear.
And he's also the voice of Paddington Bear, the movie that was dubbed in Ukrainian by him. And then to have him just show so much spine to stay there, send his family off and stay with his soldier. He's a little guy too. You see him next to his shoulder. He goes up to the chin of his soldiers around him. And he's there and he's saying this is unjust, and he's able to say it because his minister of technology has kept the internet going for them. He's able to post it on social media. He's able to spread the word around. They're on Reddit. If you get on Reddit, it's full of Ukrainian experiences that people are having.
If you ever wondered what millennials were for, this is it.
What were you going to say, Chester? Except for China.
Except for China, he's earned the respect of the Western world.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
I keep saying we're gonna have T-shirts with his picture on it. This is yeah.
Like I said, anything we can do to get rid of the Che Guevara T-shirts.
He's proven that
one on front and one on the back.
They're available on eBay. I saw them yesterday.
Oh, they've already got them. See, now all you have to do is tell me it's an American vendor and they're made in China, and we know we're right on top of it.
Bye.
See you, Judy.
Bye, Judy. People are living because they're not talking technology.
Well, I've run out of topics except for this article that you gave me about the Amazon knowing about you and how to stop it. Yeah. The Guardian has just recently, on the 27th, released an article about how much data Amazon is really collecting on you. Ooh, I ran out of air. And it's good read, but it's not surprising. It's a lot of what we've rehashed before. If you weren't aware of Amazon's data collection, the extent of it, this is a good article for that. But I don't think any of it will surprise you because of all the topics we've had in the past. We've just reached a point where, do you want the service? Then this is what you're giving up to get the service. It does go into some ideas on how you can protect yourself in some ways to keep your information a bit more private. But I don't think, in my opinion, and it is my opinion, that we have already hit that tipping point. Individuals, for example, if I was an intelligence agent, of course I would have procedures I would go through to make sure my information wasn't leaking. But as a standard citizen, consumer of technology and services, and I want to yell out to a speaker to play a song, there's an amount of this I just have to swallow because this is the way they do it. And until we start shaping the culture around these technologies, which we're not doing, we are not taking an active role in how we want to see these technologies reined in. And I can only see us as doing that as being organized, having opinions that turn into legislation, that turn into the way that we direct the way these technologies are working. Then we're going to continue to be dealing with these kinds of things, privacy issues and security issues from these organizations, and they will.
I think
Go
the
ahead, Chester.
government is working on this as we speak.
Yeah.
I hope so.
I think an example I use often, and I think it's easy to wrap your head around, is we should have a default opt-out. We should make a law that says any service provider intended on collecting your information has to have you set to not collect right from the get-go. And only through your own movements, only through your own decisions do you start giving them information. And that's what we're missing right now. You get signed up for a telephone, they're already tracking your information. Maybe they've provided a way for you to stop being tracked, but then you go to the help documents, and boy, every time I hear myself talking about this kind of stuff, I think, gee, what a world we're living in now, right? Then you got to go to the help documents that are online, you click this link, and then you read how to get into your settings, and then you check the box, opt out, and then they stop collecting information. And when you guys hear me talk about this, you basically know what I'm talking about, right? We've all gone through these kinds of things. There's permissions for apps on your phone, permissions for features that you use out there. And you're always having to go say, no, take me off of this email list. Take me, stop collecting information on my movie habits. Some services, a lot of services have given you that option, but what they haven't done is they haven't made the option mandatory right from the get-go. Right from the moment you sign into their service, they're collecting your information, and I think we should have legislation that says no. Right from the get-go, they don't collect your information. And if they want you to use their service, then they have to fully detail what they want from you for that service.
Except that I think the slate should be cleaned before that is enacted. In other words, they have to get rid of everything that they have, and they probably need to put that also on the federal government for doing the same thing.
Well, and there should be consequences. I think that there should be financial and what do you call it? Criminal consequences for not because I'm a firm believer in if you got a technical problem, you're going to get a technical solution. What I like about regulation is that when you catch them doing what we agreed they wouldn't do, now you can hold them accountable. And right now we don't have that. In many aspects, we catch them doing something. It's like, oh my gosh, look at what they're doing. Oh, and they shrug and go, well, that's the way the rules are. We're allowed to do this. If you don't like this, change the rules. It's the same argument you get with taxes. And actually, they've been very successful at changing tax rule. So
Not for the better.
I'm a firm believer. Well, not for the overall general better, but there's individuals out there that are really, really. Anyway, that's a whole different discussion. But I'm a firm believer in a digital Bill of Rights. I believe that your digital persona should have some inalienable rights, just like your physical person does. And this topic that I was just talking about, default opt-out, I think that's on the top of the list of your digital rights. Your persona in a digital world is as important, and it should be protected right from the get-go. Then we find these guys doing what they said they weren't going to do. Then you can put them in jail. Then you can charge them ridiculous fines or break up their companies. I'm still so angry at Facebook for behaving like a tobacco company with their whistleblower. They got the information. They knew what they were doing was harmful. They went forward for profit. There should be a law against that. I mean, it's one thing to be inept, but even not knowing a law has never been a defense. They not right. It's like, oh, I didn't know that was illegal. Well, you still get the ticket. Right? We make the law and say, you can't collect this information. They come back, oh, we didn't know, or it was an accident. So, well, so what? So what? You're supposed to be building things that follow our community standards. And our community standards are national, but it's even bigger than that. I mean, we get into our community standards expand outside our national borders. And that's what we should all be holding these companies to, is how we envision the future to be.
I suspect that the information that Facebook has, private information that is very insignificant compared to what Amazon has.
Well, I would disagree with you on that, Chester, on a couple of different levels. One, just because I don't trust them. I for some reason, I trust Amazon a whole lot more than I trust Facebook. And maybe it's because of its evolution, but Mark Zuckerberg has spent a lifetime now as a CEO of a company where he comes in every 6 months a year to apologize for something he's done, instead of just not doing it in the first place.
But there's been some recent articles, and I've seen them in Wall Street Journal concerning Amazon and the information that they have accumulated, and it's bizarre.
Yeah.
Well, let's not forget, Amazon is one of the largest data storage companies in the world now.
It is.
Yeah. Our government rents server space from them.
There was actually, wasn't that 2 years ago? There was this. Actually, no, it was Microsoft that got that account. You remember Amazon sued the government for giving it because they thought Trump didn't like Jeff Bezos.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, before that, they're still one of the largest data storage
That was
companies.
a cloud account.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is that these, and Amazon is definitely one of the biggest. Microsoft's a huge one. Google is a huge one. Apple's a huge one in its own way with its own proprietary systems. But these are servers that are rented out as a service. So the government needs to keep track of information. They don't have to wind up their own equipment. They just rent it as a service from a service contractor. And so there are security concerns there. What's that, Chester? I'm sorry.
I think I stand corrected. I think I was getting Amazon and Google mixed up. It's Google, I believe, that has all this information that the government is concerned about, rather than Amazon. It's Google. Amazon knows a lot about you, but nothing compared to Google.
Well, Chester, I think it'd probably be better to just assume they all know a lot about us, because it's gone from being very difficult to keep collecting these metrics to insignificant. It's just part of everything they're doing. I mean, we've reached a point where, like Facebook, for example, it's been documented that they are able to create a profile on you without a Facebook account. All you have to do is traverse a number of services that Facebook has been integrated with, and an automatic profile of you will be generated with your behaviors. Whether it's been attached to Chester or not is another question, but there is a Chester out there without name, right? Like all the thinking capacity, movements, and it's just without name. And the moment that you decide to go get into Meta's system, you buy an Oculus or you go ahead and get a Facebook account, it immediately or within moments identifies, oh, that's the nameless profile, and associates all that data with the new authorized data collection of that service that you've signed up with. So it's immediately merged into that. And
How about the billion-dollar facial recognition technology and the billion-dollar faces that they had in their system, which I believe recently they had to close out?
well, and this is interesting too because they use that. See you later, Mom. Thanks for being here. The what's interesting about this is I don't think they have a problem deleting that. I do think we should have regulators making sure that stuff is deleted. But at the same time, it did its job. It was like the gasoline for the journey. So it doesn't matter that it's all used up. They already got to where they were going. What they have is a fully trained AI on millions, maybe billions of photos, and they can use that AI however they want now. It doesn't matter whether that data exists. They were able to create, they've reached their destination with that. And this kind of thinking is all throughout the industry. Google did this recently. They tried to change the way ad tracking works. They didn't care whether you use cookies anymore. It's one of the reasons we have all these cookie things popping up. But they went through a period of time. They had to backpedal. But they went through a period of time where they're promoting this idea that they weren't going to allow cookies anymore. All these ad trackers are going to break. And they tried to build their own system. Of course, they're an advertiser, and they got caught up in regulation because it was kind of two sides of the. They were playing two different sides of the same game, and so they got in trouble for that. There was a backlash in the community, and so they stepped back from their plans. But the reason that they could do that is because their ad empire's already been formed. They don't need the cookies anymore. People have to buy ads from them. They have no choice. And they can do ad tracking in any way they want because they own the search engine. They don't have to do it through cookies. That's for third parties. That's not for Google. Jester, you out here?
I gotta go have lunch.
All right. You have a good meal. I'm so glad you're here, man. Maybe
Yeah, I
this
think
is a
I am
good
too.
time to wind this down. We didn't get any recommendations in except for Sid's podcast, but I'll put that on our meet. Unless Paul, Fred, or Jim, you want to yell anything out?
Well, 1883 came out with its last
episode, season finale.
I think it's its last episode. Period.
Oh,
Is
last
that
ever.
on Netflix?
No,
Is that
that's
on Netflix?
That's on Paramount Plus.
Okay.
Or
And it's
Cody.
very good.
Or Streamio. Just saying. Just reminding people.
Yeah, anyway, it was very good, well worth watching. It had Sam Elliott in it, and as always, he's very good.
Well, he was handpicked by Louis L'Amour to be in all his books.
Yeah.
You mean books to movies?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, very good. As always, it's great to get together with you guys. We'll be back here next Tuesday. We're planning on 10 o'clock, whether I'm in Tequila's or I'm in my office. This virtual meeting next week will happen at 10 o'clock. So let's plan on that. And until next Tuesday, you guys tech on.
Tech on.
Have an awesome week. All right. Well, that's
Bottom screen. That's the guy I ran into in the store.
Let me sign off.
Oh.
You damn it, my flow. Bring my flow back, Sid. What was it I was going to say? I am Scott Stimson with my buddy Sid February. We're here in Mexico, sitting in the office. Yeah, I'm from International Computer Solutions. If you're looking for computer help anywhere on the internet, well, I'll reach through the screen and do that thing I do remotely. So get a hold of me, Scott at internationalcs.net. If you've enjoyed this and you're interested in other things we've done, check out our website, scclub.org. We basically blog about this YouTube meeting each week. Occasionally we put up some more news throughout the week, but really what we do is we put links to everything we've talked about, as well as a couple of fun extras like episode art for each podcast and a jigsaw puzzle. So you can check out all that stuff at scclub.org. If you've got a Twitter, follow us at scclub. And I don't know. I got nothing else to add. You got anything to add, Sid? Sid says no. And with that, this is the end of our meeting. Tech on. Stop recording.